What is reality? Reality is what we believe to be true about the nature of our surroundings. But how do we come to decide that true nature? Do we conceive it completely on our own? Or do other devices gently sway our thoughts onto a pre-decided path? This is the hard question we must all ask ourselves as free humans on this planet. Who sculpts your reality?
Reality. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to tonight's broadcast.
It's Wednesday night. It's time for your reality brief.
You know what's up?
It's that time.
Broadcasting live from the super secret undisclosed location here in gloomy Hampton, Virginia. What a shitty fucking place to live, let me tell you.
Hey, I kind of like the gloom. You know what? Like, I would rather have an overcast summer day than a gnarly, hot, gross, wet summer day.
Man, let me tell you. Nothing at all. Just nothing. I'm not even going to tell you anything. Anyway, we have tonight with us Marsha Boyd, and it was, oh yeah, see? You know how we like to fuck things up, mess things up, and screw things up? Well, this time we put the complete wrong name on the promotional material, so.
And we're really sorry.
Without further ado.
We're doing the best we can here.
Marsha, you with us?
Yeah, I sure am.
All right, let me swap over here. Where'd it go? There we go. Oh, and you guys out there watching, her stream is a little choppy, so it's gonna be stills like that.
We got some freeze frames and stuff going on.
But Marsh, thank you for coming on the program tonight. We appreciate that. Hello.
Hey, thank you for having me. Hello.
So you we'll just get right to it. You were Arbel's lover for about how long would you say?
5 years.
5 years. And what time frame are we looking at here?
We're looking at 1977 to 1983.
So, I mean, it was a long time. I guess we just started at the beginning. How did you guys meet?
How did we meet? Well, basically, we were neighbors over the hill. And I used to ride my horse over to their neighbor's house, Tom and Pam's house, and it turned out that Tanya was into horses and showing horses just like me. And yes, Tanya is the other wife of Art Bell that's not even mentioned. But anyway, I met him through Tanya, and
So Tanya was Art Bell's wife at the time, you said? And
yes.
About how long? That was what, his second wife then?
That was his second wife.
His second wife.
It's funny because she's not even mentioned on the, if you go to the Wikipedia page and, look up Art Bell's bio, like, she's not even on there.
Yeah, I know. We're the two wives that gave him trouble.
The two wives that gave him trouble, yes. Delete them from the internet! So, I mean, tell me about Tanya. What exactly, how did you said you were friends with Tanya, right?
Yeah.
So you met Art through Tanya. She was married to Art.
Yeah.
How did you end up with Art?
Well, back when I was pregnant with my daughter, my second child, my husband started going over to their parties. And after a while, he told me what the parties were like, and they were basically sex parties where people, just have open sex with anybody's partner or anybody that happens to be there. And
so who was it?
He didn't want me to be jealous. So
Right.
he said, "When would you like to join?" And I thought, well, gee, here I am, just had your baby and we're doing this. But anyway, yeah, I went over there And yeah,
It doesn't sound like that thing might be so bad for, you know, a young unattached couple that doesn't have kids and, you know,
Right.
doesn't have a whole lot of serious stuff going on. But I could see how kids would definitely complicate that picture.
So
big time.
you go over and you do the deed, so to speak. And this is Art Bell. This is Art Bell throwing these parties, right?
Now, to any of our listeners who aren't familiar with who Art Bell was, he was kind of like the godfather of late night talk radio. He had shows like everybody knows Coast to Coast, but then there were some other ones like Dreamland and what was it? He did stuff with Whitley Strieber back in the day. And, you know, I mean, he was a major influence on my life growing up. You know, the first time I ever heard about alien abductions was on the radio late at night.
Yeah, and I think.
Yeah. And guess
Go ahead.
who started him on that?
So how did that happen? Tell us that story.
Well, I'm going to kind of bypass how him and I ended up together and how Tanya and my husband ended up together, and skip to when we are together. And he was doing a talk show. It was a news talk show in a radio station in SoCal. I can't remember the call numbers for anything, but he had a once a week gig of going in and for 4 hours, you know, talk about newsworthy subjects and stuff and get people to call in. Well, nobody was calling in. I mean, you might get 1 or 2 calls in that 4 hour period. And he was talking for the whole 4 hours. And, you know, he likes to talk with people. That's his big deal. So.
Boy, we know what that's like.
Yeah. Tell me about it. So anyway, one night we hadn't got a single call. And I go, Art, why don't you just ask everybody if they saw that UFO last night that I saw? Because I'm way into that kind of thing. So I was always kind of talking to him about it. And I go, hey, just ask people. Maybe we'll get a call. The whole board lit up. And so every week, instead of doing news, we were talking about UFOs and ghosts and paranormal stuff and everything, until one of the owners of the station decided to see how we got all these great ratings. He got on to listen to the news and stuff that he thought was on, and I don't remember what the story was, but it was probably something about Bigfoot or something like, or UFOs. So Art got fired for doing that.
And
that was the very
that was the start of the UFO stuff.
Yeah.
So
well, thank you for your service for getting him started down that path, because seriously, that woke a lot of us up. You know,
it helped. Yeah.
It definitely had a major effect on the zeitgeist of the country. I remember being 10 years old and him doing a show about violence in video games and calling in and saying, you know, it's not video games don't make people violent. A lack of respect for life makes people violent.
I think the main thing that I appreciated the most from Coast to Coast was, no matter how just ridiculous, crazy, you know, just off the wall that any caller or guest may sound to anyone, you know, they were never ridiculed on the air. And we kind of try to do that here. I mean, we joke around a lot, so we end up making fun of people, but whatever. It's been said we're kind of like Coast to Coast a little bit, but if it was a morning show.
Yeah.
A morning show. Yeah.
But, you know, what's it? I really liked his whole style, cause to him, like, you know, he presented some of the craziest stuff I'd ever heard. David Icke, lizard people, the Maitreya, you know, all sorts of wild, far out stuff. And then, you know, he would cover stuff that I had a genuine interest in. Like, I remember he had guests on talking about magic, talking about, you know, like Western ceremonial tradition magic, witchcraft and Wicca, you know, just all this stuff. And it was just this huge array of just wild topics. And I'm a night person, so, you know, even now I'll still listen to Coast when I'm up late working.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the radio show aside.
So,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said he learned what sold.
Right.
You know, he could be a whole nother talk radio person. It's just there's all kinds of them. Or he could be the person that talks about things that people really are interested. And he had a knack of being all things to all people. When he was doing the news thing, one night he was a dyed in the world Republican. I mean, just dyed in the wool Republican, and all night long you could get some arguments, you know, from the other side. The next night he's going to be the Democrat, the liberal, and he's
Right.
going to play that side, just like he believes it. It's the type of person he is.
Yeah, and like I said, you know, his radio show aside, I mean, you know, everybody kind of holds Coast to Coast up in a high regard. It was a good show, and thank you again for starting him on that path so he can touch so many people like that. But you know, there is more sides to him than just what was presented on the radio, which I'm sure we're gonna touch on tonight. So now, do you not want to get into how you guys got together and what happened with Tanya and all that?
Uh, I suppose I could. I mean, just to kind of give you an idea of how he handles things. See, I was only 22 years old. He was 33, so he was quite my senior. And let's see, where can I even start with this? Anyway, like go back to the parties. That was something that he did a lot of times. In fact, Tanya was the one that worked more than him. I would suspect that Tanya was the one that supported them both. But anyway, Tanya and my husband used to get together on their own instead of being, you know, in the party.
Parties.
Yeah, they'd go and do their thing. And so, you know, if you're going to do that to me, then I'm going to do that to you. And so I started seeing Art alone. And, well, it turned out that my husband got Tanya pregnant. And
Whoa.
Tanya left Art and moved in. Well, was going to move in with my husband. My husband wanted to talk to me first, and so he came to me and told me, he says, you know, I really, really like Tanya a whole lot, and I got her pregnant, and I would like to have her move in with us when we buy the new place so you could help take care of the baby when it gets here. Excuse me. I have a newborn and an 18-month-old, and my husband wants me to come in and nursemaid her baby because she's not that girl.
The set of gazagnas on that guy, man. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's awful. It's awful. That was just awful. And so Tanya broke up with him, and he was pretty shocked because he thought that he was kind of in control of his relationship, and he really wasn't, because Tanya's another "you're not the boss of me now" type person. So anyway,
your husband starts seeing his wife one-on-one. You start seeing Art one-on-one. Tanya gets pregnant. Your husband pulls all that crazy shit. So then you move out. So do you move in with Art, or do you strike off?
Well, it was really hard because I'm 22. You know, I got married to him when I was 19, and I had my first baby when I was 21, and the second at 22. So I'd never really done anything. You know, I had never really done anything. So it freaked me out to think, well, okay, if I stay with Alan, then I'm going to have to do this bit, and it's not going to work out because me and Tanya are not going to get along anymore.
Right.
And if I go with Art, he wrote me a letter.
Yeah, I was just ready to.
Yeah, he wrote me a letter, and the letter kind of scared me too. You know, it's like, does he really care about me or does he not? because there's two arts, and there's two arts in that letter that now that I read it all these years later, I could see it more clearly, but the letter didn't feel right to me. So it was like scary to go with art, but I'll be damned if I'm going to stay with Alan. And I didn't have anything else I could do. I got a newborn 18-month-old. What am I going to do? You know, how am I going to support myself and all of that? So it was basically, okay, Alan, I'm going with art. And in one fell swoop, all of Alan's friends came over with their trucks and horse trailers and moved me within an hour, and everything in the house within the hour except
Wow.
for the water bed and the pool table. And he got everything else though. He got the house, but they moved me in that hour.
Well, we've got this letter here. Do you mind if we read it, or do you want to read it?
You can read it if you want, or
Okay.
I can read it. I don't care.
It's up to you. It doesn't matter.
I can show it. Some people might not be believing this.
Right. I put it out on the stream already, by the way.
Oh, good, because that is his handwriting. Okay, he did this on scrap paper.
Wow.
Okay, and those are kind of some interesting numbers and figures on there that I don't know much about. But those that know Art's signature, I don't know if you can read it or not. Anyway,
Wow.
so it's a 3-page letter to me from him about this situation, written on scrap paper. Did you want to read it, or you want me to?
I can read it. It's
Okay.
like you said, unless you wanted to. I just lost it. Okay, here we go. So it says, starts off, "Hi, babe. This time it's my turn to try to put my feelings on paper. This isn't at all easy for me, on paper or any other way. I've come to some conclusions. This has been rough on everybody, but we're adults, and we'll live through it somehow. I'm afraid the kids are not so lucky. They just don't understand. I'm beginning to feel very guilty about the effects it's having on Cosmo." So who is Cosmo?
That's my son.
Okay. "I've given all this a lot of thought. Perhaps it would be better if I removed myself from the situation."
Yeah, that was a big shocker right there.
Right.
You know, that's to set me up for what's coming.
Mm.
It's like, oh my God, he's gonna leave, so now I'm gonna be stuck with Alan and Tanya. Oh God, what if I have to move back home with my parents?
All right.
Anyway.
Let me just mute Dance while he's typing there. Okay, so. What is going on here? Oh, forget it.
What is
Balls.
going on here?
There are some other things I must tell you. We've talked about how fast all this happened. Well, it's true. I had what I considered a pretty good marriage, or at least I thought, at least I guess I could at least say I wasn't expecting it to break up at any moment. The fact that Tanya fell in love with Alan came as a great shock to me. The truth is, I was still in love with her. I know you've seen the worst side of her. She really wasn't always like that. For the last year or so, we really weren't working at the relationship, so I guess when Alan came along, she was ready for it. I'm still kind of in shock at the loss. I know that's a very hard pill for you to swallow, but I feel I've got to level with you. I've had dreams about Tanya, and it's been rough. I've been in an almost constant emotional mess. Now for the good news, if you can call it that, I've really looked hard at what I feel about you. There is just no question about it. I am very much in love with you. And you should know that I am sorry for the pain I've caused you and all the insecurities you must feel. I think you've been exceptionally strong and know more about me at times than I do about myself. For example, you should also know that although my memories of my prior marriage still tug at me, recently it's not been so bad. Perhaps it's beginning to fade a bit now. I don't know. I don't know that my love and respect for you is growing all the time. I do know that my love and respect for you is growing at all the time. I also know that I am increasing my dependence on you all the time. I'm not so sure that's a wise thing on my part. What I am sure Alan would like to show you is the fact that that in a letter I told Tanya I was still in love with her. That fact bothers Alan, I am sure. I also find it tough to understand why she treats me the way she does after 4 years together, most of which are not that bad. She refuses to even talk to me, which I also fail to understand. When she came to the house a couple weeks ago, I told her I was having a tough time in my head. I asked her if she still loved me. She said yes. I was almost hoping she would say no and make it easier for me. She just smiled and said she wouldn't make it any easier. I told her I loved you and I was afraid I was hurting you because you knew I was still in love with her. That seemed to please her, so perhaps she's playing some cruel games.
Yeesh. Just yipes.
The days she will be able to do that to me are numbered. I had hopes that things would improve, but the kind of scene that happened today is why Cosmo is acting the way he is. If he's just going through a stage, okay, but I have the feeling it's more than just that, and I feel responsible. Perhaps the best thing I could do would be to leave the situation. Or perhaps we should leave the situation. I'm not sure what's right and what's wrong anymore. Anyhow, I do love you very much. Art.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you find out a couple of years later why she left him.
Yeah, it really didn't take all that long.
It seems like a very complicated stew of emotions that you would be experiencing, being that deep with that many people at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've never been in a polyamorous situation, so I really, I've come close a couple times, but never really had like a true thing like that. And to me, it seems like there would be an adjustment period.
It's more than an adjustment period. I think it's too complicated for most people.
Yeah.
Because people are the way people are.
Yeah.
And I had husbands trying to hook up with me during my time with Art, and saying how bored they were of their wives and how exciting I was and how they just wish they could be with me and stuff. And that's not part of, having an sexual relationship. It's not an open, emotional relationship. Because that complicates things in a big way.
Right. I mean, just that nature of that. I mean, with jealousy. I mean, it's got to be hard to, kind of share someone like that. I couldn't imagine it.
Yeah.
Personally, but
yeah.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it if you're into that thing. I just say not for me.
I think if you were open, if you were totally open and you were both really into it, I could see that working out for someone. But generally speaking, maybe today, but back then, anybody that you could get together with could get a huge crush on you instead of being a more mature soul and taking it for what it's worth, and they get, connected. He kind of thrived on that. Mm-hmm. I was finding out that he was picking up women in our group situations and then sneaking off and having with them too. So
now you were with Art for a while. He was doing the radio thing, and you got in there. You kind of urged him to go to the UFO thing, but that didn't last very long. He got fired. But then you guys kind of started your own business venture. Can you explain that?
Yeah, he came up with this idea of a video dating service where people can come and do an interview on video and talk about all the things that they're into and what they like and what they're looking for in another person and stuff. And we had people could join this and go through a whole catalog of people and pick out videos they want to watch. And if they wanted to go on a date with that person, then we'd put in a request, and that person would come in, see the other person's video, the one that chose them, and if they liked them, then great. We gave them both. We exchanged their phone numbers, to each of them, and they would get together on their own.
So it was like the early '80s version of FetLife.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. I actually think that's kind of cool. Like, I mean,
Or actually, this
Yeah,
was
this was 1978.
1978.
1978. And we opened up an office in Marina, California, which wasn't far from where we lived. And that was going pretty good. We were the first color in color instead of black and white in this kind of a dating service. So that was kind of a draw. But we needed more of a clientele, and it wasn't all that big there. So he borrowed money from a friend of his. He was an airline pilot, and Bob gave us the money to move down to San Diego and start the business down there, which was a good thing because my husband was stalking me, and there was just a lot of really bad things going on with family and stuff.
Right.
So we moved down to San Diego, and we started up Video Encounters. So it wasn't very long. Maybe it was about 6 months or so. He got this bright idea. He says, he says, people like to date. Well, we have a hard time finding other couples and stuff to have relationships with and stuff. So why don't we start introducing couples to couples? Have a swingers introduction thing instead. And so it was. And that kind of that was going pretty good, actually. It was pretty cheap. I mean, but we got it going, and people were coming. I mean, we were having people join that were circuit court judges and, people that were prominent politicians and stuff that were coming and joining that part along with the dating part. Well, one day there was a couple that came in and joined up and did their video, paid their $15 yearly thing, and walked out. And then they turned around and walked back in, and they were sheriff's detectives. And they came in with 5 or 6 different sheriffs and arrested us both on pandering, prostitution, keeping a disorderly house, and one other charge for introducing couples to couples.
It seems like an egregious infringement upon your free speech.
Major, big time. It was, because right outside of the sheriff's office were all these tabloids that have ads for people to meet each other in such a way. We just took it one step further. We took it to video, so you could actually see body language and tone of voice and all that. That was the only difference. So anyway, the first thing we did when we got out of jail was talk to a lawyer, and we talked to George Haverstick was the lawyer that we chose. And he says, they're going to try and bury you with this. You need to go very public with this. That way, there's no court in land that's going to convict you of this. So that's what we did. And we went real public. We went every TV station in San Diego County, every newspaper. When those started, then we started getting things from abroad. I got an interview with the London Daily Star over it. For proof, that's me when I was 22. That's art at the desk.
Uh-oh. Hold on.
Have you got that?
I was already putting those up. No, you're frozen anyway, but I've put all the stuff, as you've been talking about it, that you sent me up.
Oh, right on. Right on. You want me to read it? I don't know
actually,
if you can
because
or
it's
not.
kind of hard. It's kind of hard for me to read the news article.
Okay. At the bottom of the picture, it says, "Date with the law. Art Bell and Marsha Boyd face charges following a raid on a video dating service they operated to introduce couples for mate swapping." It's a Peter Coeleman photo. And it's called "Seized Tapes May Bear VIP's Sex Secrets" by Bernard Hunt. Sheriff's Vice and this was in the San Diego Union Tribune, just so people know where this comes from.
Unfortunately, guys out there listening, we looked, but we're like a couple years past where they're caught up to as far as putting the archives on the internet. The only way you can get this article now is, like if you have a copy like her, or if you go to the public library there and get it on the microfiche or whatever it's called. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Much go.
That's okay. I've got it on Xerox. Sheriff's Vice investigators are spending their time these days watching videotaped interviews with lonely hearts and so-called swinging couples. What they're hearing, says the man who owns the tapes, will be the deepest secrets of almost 400 San Diegans, including the private sexual habits of a number of prominent people. The tapes are about $4,500 worth of taping equipment and were seized Friday in a raid by sheriff's officers and La Mesa police on Video Encounters, a La Mesa introduction service. Operator Art Bell, 33, who was arrested, says many of his clients, trusting his promise of confidentiality, unburdened their deepest secrets on those tapes. A lot of people are going to get hurt by this, Bell said. When they joined, I promised them complete privacy. I gave them our assurances that no one would see those tapes unless they consented. There were a lot of prominent people in this town who came to us.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, would you say that was his plan at all?
Yeah.
To kind of like build
it's all hindsight. A lot of it's hindsight.
Yeah, but, I mean, totally. I mean, you're what? You were 20, 21?
I was 22.
So, I mean, did the police get the hell suit out of them? Because I'm pretty sure that violates a non-disclosure act or something, man.
Yeah. They did indeed get sued.
Good.
We went to court and then got absolved of everything. And then we sued them.
Awesome.
And
again, thank you for your service.
Yeah, we ended up settling out of court and getting enough money to pay back Bob McCutcheon, who had so generously donated enough funds to get us going.
That's a big name in Art's background.
Yeah, Bob McCutcheon.
Yeah.
Would you mind talking a little bit about Bob?
Bob was a person that was an older fellow. I don't know if he's even still alive now. He would at least, I think, be in his 90s by now. But he was a United Airlines pilot. He was a past Navy SEAL. And he was someone that was a friend of Art's from before me and before Tanya, and maybe even before Sachiko. I'm not sure. But we used to go to the Bay Area to visit him, like once a week or once every couple of weeks. He was like a kind of a mentor in some ways, in an odd way.
So what did this Bob guy do for a living?
Well, he was a United Airlines pilot.
Okay. Do you have any kind of military background or anything like that you know of?
Yeah, he did. He was a Navy SEAL, and he told us quite a few stories of what he used to do, and then tell me personally that it's classified, so don't tell anybody else. But he was one of a team of Navy SEALs that went to China to assassinate a royal female, a royal woman and her child. And he made a big point of telling me that particular story and telling me, but that's classified, so don't tell anybody.
So definitely involved in Black Ops. Obviously,
yeah.
if he's pulling assassination jobs, he may. I mean, it could even be working for the CIA at that point. I don't know how often they utilize Navy SEALs for assassinations, but
well, if you think about it, if he got out of the SEALs and he's a pilot,
yeah, that's
as well as all that. You know, it would almost be a shoo-in to go into CIA.
Hmm.
You know, because he was not just a United Airlines pilot; he did other piloting as well.
Right. And didn't he have like didn't he have like this big anti-drug stance and stuff?
Um, well, I don't know if he had an anti-drug stance or not, because he was telling me about another pilot that was a friend of his and Art's, that had rented an entire United Airlines hangar and filled it full of weed to grow.
Interesting.
So he did have inside knowledge of who grows what where.
Well, I tend to
At least
regard
it's
weed as a vegetable, not so much a drug. But that,
So
It's
I mean,
it's not a drug.
at this
as
time,
much
I
as
mean,
coffee's a drug,
the CIA was running drugs, like via airport,
like real drugs, like coke and heroin
cocaine
and stuff.
stuff like that. I mean, I'm not saying the guy was wrapped up in that. I guess we don't really know, but I mean, to me, it seems like a distinct possibility.
I'm beginning to wonder if Bob was the pilot that flew 150 Vietnamese babies over here,
Right.
that Art had uh, organized back during Operation Baby Lift in 1975.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I mean, I wasn't able to find any information on where those kids ended up at or anything like that. Were you able to come across anything?
I have looked and looked and looked, and all I have is Art's story,
Right. And,
which
well,
happened
I'm sorry.
2 years before I met him.
So this story now is something that Art used to brag about all the time, and so much so that it made it into the Wikipedia because he was talking about it on a show of his, on a broadcast about how he raised the money to charter this plane and fly all these kids from Vietnam into America to get adopted, quote unquote adopted. But
Yeah.
there's no
To
record of
eventually
that.
be adopted.
Right. There's no record of that. So, I mean, all these things, like you can't say, hey, look, this is some crazy human trafficking shit going on here. You got no proof of that, obviously, but it makes you think. Especially because through the years you've always heard, oh, our pals CIA, here's CIA. You never really saw anything that could convince you of that, but talking to you over these last couple times and now, it just keeps making me feel like, wow, I think Arbel really was involved with the CIA. I mean, it's fucking crazy. I mean, you got the video encounters thing. Now, we know it's standard MO for these types to get blackmail fodder to hold over people. You're talking judges and God knows who else. You said 400 and some people from the area. A lot of them,
Yeah, that
big
was the
to-do
scuttlebutt
cats.
of the whole Pizzagate thing, was that they basically, if you wanted to join the elites club, then you had to do some shady stuff, and then they would hold that over you, basically to force you to comply because, oh, hey, guess what? We drugged you, and now we have you on tape snuggling next to a 12-year-old, so if you ever don't do what we want, we're going to go ahead and put that on CNN.
I mean, it doesn't even
Feeding
have
the
to
wolves.
be a 12-year-old. I mean, think of the time, and you're talking about like wife swap, like couples dating services here with all these tapes talking about like dude and his wife, circuit judge and his wife talking about she likes to get it from blah 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 blah, and I like a blah 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 blah. That would have been some pretty damning shit back then. I mean, you're not talking about now where it's like it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, nowadays nobody cares if you like it when somebody squanches all over your flub nods.
I mean, that's just oh yeah, I saw that on the tube.
Yeah.
But late 70s, early 80s, that was the days of DARE and Nancy Reagan and the Christian Coalition.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the only thing that gets shied upon nowadays is, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but would be, obviously the shit you got going on with these, what's that guy's name, the director, and all the sexual abuse to women and stuff, and then also...
Oh, yeah, what's his name? Weinstein.
And then also the children thing. And it seems as though that they're trying real hard to even make that like standard operating procedure. Like, you know,
Well,
it's
there-
okay to have sex with kids.
There's the whole thing with Jeff Epstein's Island, and that's where I think Pizzagate goes, is all the way
Yeah.
to the top. Like,
Yeah, and they got articles coming out all the time talking about, oh yeah, sure, toddlers can consent. Studies show. Are you fucking kidding me right now? Like,
get a rope.
yeah. So, you know, knowing how all that works, it just, it's building a case here. I feel like Alex Jones about to explode. CIA, quite possibly. No proof. Pure speculation here on my part. You know, so don't
Sure.
sue me, guy, if you're still alive. But, I mean, it looks like that.
You know, I just recently saw a video where he's talking about, you know, how there is no death. You know, after you don't really die, that there is no death. And he happened to die on Friday the 13th. Okay, he would have picked that day himself if he could pick.
You think
That
they-
would be a day he would have picked.
You think he's walking around in a robot body right now?
They threw him in cryo.
Okay, you could be cloned somewhere.
Oh, I have to imagine. I can't imagine that they don't have Stephen Hawking's brain on ice somewhere.
Oh, absolutely they do. If that even was Stephen Hawking's. But we're not even going to go there. That's a whole nother show, guys. Okay, let's see. So we got this guy, Bob. Then we've got the video encounters thing. And the kids from Vietnam. Jeez, man. I'm trying to
That
get
we
to
can't account for.
right, that you
I
can't
mean,
account
I
for.
did lots of researching to try to find the kids that he himself, you know, the ones that he brought over. You would think all of that would be in the news.
Some kind
He
of
had to be in
record.
the news all the time. He was a narcissist, you know, so he had to keep things out there, you know, just for his own well-being.
Mhm.
And
Now,
yeah, there's nothing out there on it.
had you ever known Art to be into kids that way at all?
Yeah,
Really?
he really was a sex deviant. He was into all different kinds of things. Yeah.
Anything,
There was one instance that he brought a 12, 13, maybe 14-year-old boy up to the office. He'd gone down to go get some lunch or something. I was kind of watching. I was, you know, manning the place. And he comes back with this boy. And he's asking the boy if he's, you know, ever touched a woman, or if he's ever done this, or if he's ever done that. And the kid was kind of embarrassed, you know, but it's like, yeah, I'd like to find out. I'd like to find out about the dating and women and stuff like that. And then there was a knock at the door, and it was his parents. Apparently, his parents had went to another office there in the building, and Art had seen him, I guess, maybe out in a car, or maybe he was just walking back and forth, and he brought him up to the office and started that.
Wow. That could have went really bad for you guys. Like,
Yeah, no kidding.
that was like a close one for
Yeah.
certain. And
Yeah.
I know there's probably going to be
So
people out
when
there.
I hear,
I'm sorry, go ahead. When you hear what?
that's okay. When I hear people that are accusing him of child molestation or anything like that, I'm sorry. I could believe him to do that. Just because he's what he is. You know, he's really a sexual deviant and a real narcissist. He really doesn't believe in any one thing. He will be whatever a person wants him to be when they meet him. That's what makes him such a great talk show host. You know, he can size somebody up and know exactly how to talk to them and influence them, almost like neuro-linguistic programming. And if you listen to his shows again with that in mind, you might be able to see that.
Yeah. So, was that something that like came up right away? Did it take a while for you to find out about the kids thing? Was there more
Yeah,
instances?
he took me in a different direction. He manipulated me in a whole different direction, just kind of like he did Vicky, and the one after me.
Hmm. Yeah, and it
You know,
seems.
he was a voyeur, and he really liked really super kinky things. So he would set up things for me to do, for him to watch. Maybe not necessarily participate, but it was a big deal to him to watch.
Hmm.
So,
All right, so okay, we got that. Now, like I was saying, did you find out about that thing early on, or did it take a while to find out? Like, how long into you seeing him did this thing happen with this boy?
With a boy.
Yeah.
Um, that's 40 years ago. I'm trying to
It's
see
okay. It's okay.
in my mind how soon after opening down there that was. But it was, let's see, I think we did about 6 months, just regular dating service. And that's when you decide, well, let's slip in this other thing because that gives us a whole different demographic, a whole other one to draw from. So, and it was after that then he brought the boy up. And I would imagine he may have wanted to show him some videos and stuff because he was also into pornography.
All right. Before we go any further on that, I just want to backpedal a little bit to after you guys got arrested for the video encounters thing, and people were worried about personal information leaking and all this and that. You had a story about a bomb. Did you want to tell us about that?
Yeah.
she said somebody tried to bomb Art Bell's car.
Yeah, except it wasn't Art Bell's car. It was our neighbor's car that was in front of the house. It was one of the guys he was in the dating service, and then he joined the swingers introduction, and we also introduced singles to couples because couples would request singles specifically too, and he was one of those. And I can't remember his name, so that's not going to help anything. But he kept calling us, trying to extort money out of us and stuff for his name and being in there. He wanted to make absolutely sure that he wasn't in our records anymore and blah, blah, blah. And we had him over, we showed him, look, we've destroyed this here. Here's your page. Well, he kept up trying to extort money and stuff and terrorizing us. And one day he called up and he says, Marsha, that's a beautiful backless blouse you're wearing. Well, I hadn't been out all day long. And yeah, my windows were open and I didn't have the curtains drawn. So he was actually looking in my house, which freaked me out. And of course, I called Art to tell him, this guy is just crazy. And we called the cops about him. Well, after we did that, they couldn't do anything because we really had nothing. It was just a bunch of talk back and forth and no harm done to either one of us. Well, one night he had taken looked like he'd taken gunpowder and rolled it up in a dog food bag, those big 50-pound big paper bags.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so he rolled it up to try to kind of make his own dynamite. And
Wow.
he put that underneath the car and he blew it up and he made a big hole in the bottom of my neighbor's car.
Wow.
Wow, that's crazy stuff.
So did he ever end up going to jail for that, or did he get away with that?
No, he got away with it.
California must have been nuts back there in those days.
Yeah, man.
It's
Yeah.
not to say it's not nuts now, but
But if you follow Art's after me, he has a record of having people trying to kill him, trying to come after him, trying to accuse him of all sorts of things. So it's like till the very end, somebody's shooting guns by his house in Pahrump.
yeah. Like, and he even
You
says
know,
that on the Wikipedia thing. It says that he had to deal with constant intruders onto his property and people doing all sorts of crazy stuff outside of his house, like
and you
rabbit.
really think that was coast to coast? You really think that people were hunting him down for his coast to coast show and the
No
things that
way.
he revealed? I
Well,
don't think
No
so.
way, man.
It could have been JC, trying to get him to the boiling pits of sewage.
Well, I know that my ex-husband wanted to hunt him down and kill him. He really did want to murder him for what he did. And all the things that Tanya told Alan that he did to her, so he was really concerned.
Sounds like he made some
I
enemies
hope
along
Alan
the
loved
way.
Yeah, most definitely. We got some comments from the chat. Says there were thousands of kids brought over in '75. I remember the flights, but a specific flight tied to art. These flights were sold to the American people as these were the mixed race kids of American GIs. We were told by the media that those kids would be killed if left behind. So, I mean, just some verification of that type of stuff going on.
And we have friends personally whose families fled the Khmer Rouge from, they fled Laos and Cambodia and places like that live here in the Hampton Roads area that wouldn't be here if it weren't for some of those airlifts.
Yeah, but even there's record of Hugh Hefner taking his private jet with his Playboy bunnies and going over there and bringing back kids. Why is there nothing mentioned about art? Why is it his own personal story, but he doesn't have any news backup to it? There's a whole website that's got it's just for Operation Baby Lift, for the grown-up people to come to maybe reunite, see if they can find their parents or get together, and nobody mentions that flight.
Yeah.
And apparently it was from Saigon to Anchorage, Alaska, where he lived.
And Art.
And I can't find a flight to Anchorage from Saigon.
He was
so
pretty,
was
he
that
was,
possible?
He was pretty proud of it too. I mean, he carried on about it.
Yep, he did. He was very proud of it.
Wow.
Well, and I
But
mean,
I don't like of it.
I hope he actually did save some people, like legit save some people. But he makes you wonder.
I know. With all the other stuff going around, man, I hope it was legitimately good thing. But
me too.
Just knowing about how things work, man, it doesn't look good for old Mr. Bell. Not in my eyes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're coming up on the top of the hour here, so we're gonna take a quick break. Well, maybe around 10 minutes or so. So if you need to stretch your legs, go to the bathroom, do whatever you got to do, now is the time, ladies and gentlemen. And
grab a delicious nos.
when we get back, we're gonna talk a little bit more about arts and what happened from that point forward. We're also going to open up the. Well, shit. I guess we can't open up the lines. That's right. All right.
We'd like to open
We
up the
will
lines.
accept questions from the YouTube chat. If you got a question for Marsha, just type it in the
Unfortunately,
chat.
we are a one-stop shop for technical difficulties, and for some whatever reason, we can't get Skype working on computer number 2, and we kind of need computer number 1 for our Skype with Marsha. So, yeah, if you guys got questions, hit our YouTube channel.
Hit the YouTube channel. If you're watching on Twitch or somewhere else, hop over to YouTube if you want to ask your questions.
Or, even just come to our Facebook page, facebook.com/realitybriefnews. It's the group. Or just facebook.com/realitybrief. We are monitoring these pages in real time. Now, thanks to, we have the additional assistance of our master shitposter, Tess.
That's right. Would like to say a little bit of something about that. We got some new members of the crew, guys. Mr. J. Fick. He's going to be helping us with hot, juicy tips about hot, juicy stories and guests. Yeah. And then we've got Tess, Master Shitposter. She's kind of driving the social media for us a little bit, you guys. So we'd like to thank them. And hey,
we believe it's possible for shitposting to ascend.
All right, so like I said, we're going to take a short break, and then we will be back, and see you then.
Resolve to do the wrong thing. Major crashes and the heart will sing. Check the balance, darling, before leaving town. When you go away, alert sense of sound. Step with each other until our eyes turn gray. Your secret side, expired pesticides, feeling out to normalize the top prize. Late night arrive is an ill-mannered sign. Still a slice of rye in order to provide. No words to say, spying eyes from outside.
So I haul ass to the apartment complex, making it a meet-up spot. Oh, that's pretty cool. That was something. Dawn was already there. He was freaking out about something. He dropped his bike and came running over to me around the corner. You know, I knew the guy pretty well. He's not the type to spin yards. Definitely not the type to freak out. He knew who it was right away. So he tried to keep his distance, but he just couldn't. So as fast as he rode, every time he looked back, the guy was crouching or hiding behind something closer and closer every time. Like, impossible. He said he could hear the guy whispering stuff really fast. He noticed as the guy got closer that he was whispering into his fist. He said he got closer still and he could see the guy was whispering into a ring. He said closer still. And he said the ring was a big fat fly tied to his finger, just buzzing around in place. He's hyperventilating, you know. I don't even know how to tell him that I had just seen the creep as well. I don't know, neither of us are ever religious, but I could tell he meant it when he said, that man was the
Я пришел дать эту песню.
Like beef. I smell 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 like beef.
What's it say, Dan? President Putin has slammed Pope Francis for pushing a political ideology instead of running a church, and warned that the leader of the Catholic Church is not a man of God.
How has my love
Oh, shit.
so happily, how I live.
So, yeah.
Pope Francis is using his platform to push a dangerous far-left political ideology on vulnerable people around the world. People who trust him because of his position, Putin said. If you look at what he, the Pope, says, it's clear that he is not a man of God. At least not the Christian God. Not the God of the Bible. Putin knows the Bible. Believe me, you.
Oh, I'm sure.
He said this at the Naval Cathedral of St. Nicholas in Kronstadt. He dreams of a world government and of a global communist system of repression. Putin or the Pope? I don't know. As we have seen before in communist states, this system is not compatible with Christianity. The Pope has become increasingly brazen this year in pushing the globalist agenda and far-left talking points upon the masses. Earlier this year, he called for a global central bank and a financial authority. And more recently, he said, Americans need to be ruled by a world government as soon as possible for their own good. What the fuck, man? Hey guys, we're back. Hour 2.
Hey, you guys.
Oh, we're back here with Marsha Boyd, talking about the notorious Art Bell. Kind of getting a little different perspective than you would typically hear about Art, because usually all you hear about is how fucking great and awesome he was, which, you know, he had a cool show. I give him that. But I don't think I would like the guy.
And, I mean, I would say that he changed the culture from one where nobody would ever come out and dare say that they'd been abducted by aliens, or they'd been the target of a massive government conspiracy, or they'd practiced magic, or they'd seen Bigfoot, or any of that stuff. Like, we went from a culture being where anybody who came out and said that kind of stuff was was an absolute loon and a total weirdo, to, hey, maybe there's something to that. Maybe there is life off of this planet elsewhere. Maybe the government is doing horrible things behind your back that you'd probably rather not know about.
See, and it was like the perfect storm, because we got Marsha there saying, hey, ask about the UFOs, and him just so willing to glom on anything that was going to give him some fame or money that he kind of just grabbed it and ran with it, and now you got Reality Reef. Hey!
Well, and I hate to say it, but
Thanks, Marsha.
the development of this show kind of follows that curve too, because I remember originally the programming that Don here was doing was a little more Muggle politics centric.
Yeah, that was a different show, though.
It was a different show, but it was more focused on the mainstream news, the headlines,
the basic Earth conspiracy type stuff, like the Illuminati, New World Order, cabal, that kind of shit.
Was there Russian collusion with the Democrats?
The masters of the world, that kind of thing. I didn't really get into too many. Well, we didn't get. I was co-host on that show. We didn't get into too much paranormal type shit. But, after that was over, then I was like, fuck it, I'm going to do what I want to do.
And that's when we got in, one day he hits me up and says, hey, do you want to do a radio show? And he said, hey, it's about exopolitics. And I'm like, all right, word, sounds cool.
I like spaceships.
Yeah.
And then it was born.
I did work
but that's enough about us and all that.
I did work for NASA for 2 years.
That's not the point of this right now.
Which that was one of the other great disillusioning experiences of my life. But somebody who was kind of a mentor to me early on when I first got into like politics, probably not too long after I met Don here. It was back during the whole Ron Paul 2008 thing, like probably 2007, early 2007. And this lady, her name was Jo, and she told me, go ahead and just kill your angels now, because no matter who you look up to, no matter if it's a politician or a public figure or a writer or an author or a director, musician, whatever, any famous person that you look up to is going to disappoint you somehow. They're going to in some way, no matter how much you look up to them, they're going to let you down. It might be a minor philosophical point you disagree with them with. It might be something they did. It might be something they said. Doesn't matter.
Or you might find out that they're, a total sociopath who's into kids.
Or that they're involved in a cult. Whatever.
Well,
Whatever.
I'm sure there's some people out there.
They're going to let you down. There are no angels, so go ahead and kill your angels now. Tear down your idols.
I'm pretty sure there's some people out there.
I'm glad I had that advice, and I would forward that advice on to anybody else who's thinking about getting involved in anything involving politics or media or the public circle or anything really.
So we did have a question coming through the chat, and you guys out there listening, if you want to ask questions, please do just type them on in there. The first one we got here is from Thomas Dunville. Ask Marsha if Art was big into his shortwave ham radio when they were together, and more about his radio jobs then.
Yes, he was. He's always been into ham radio for as long as I've known him. He'd spend all night on the radio, just talking to anybody he can get, around the world. He had a Saudi prince that he talked to fairly often.
Really?
Yeah. It was on. But he'd be up all night. He wouldn't go to bed till the sun was coming up. So that was a big thing in his life was radio. Always has.
So I guess he wanted to also know about his early career, if you want to talk about that.
Well,
More about
we
his
did
radio job, like what type of radio jobs. I mean, basically, from what I can understand from talking to you, he was only doing the radio thing for a short while when you were with him, and then you guys broke off and did the video encounters thing. What was he doing after the video encounters?
Well, after we got arrested and all that stuff came out and all the big hoo-ha that went on, of course, the whole thing took a dive, and we couldn't keep in business. We didn't make enough money because of, the scandal. So that's when we sued the county and the city and the sheriff's department and won. And that was good, but we had to pay back all of our money that we borrowed from Bob for the business, so that went, and he had to get another job. And that was a job working as a disc jockey down in Tijuana.
Wow, that sounds kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, he had to go across to the border to Tijuana every night and DJ a top 20 station. I'm trying to think of the call letters of that. Starts with an X.
Well,
but anyway, yeah, he DJ'd then. And while he was doing that, though, we're still doing the parties and stuff, and going and doing some really bad, well, doing things. And, the different sexual things and stuff. And, God, where was I going with this? They're trying to cut me off. Okay. We went to one thing, and my babysitter was not available. And he really wanted me to go to this. So I looked through the paper, and I found a nice older couple that would babysit for me for overnight. And so on the way there, where we were going, we dropped her off and went and did this all-night party thing in Point Loma. And when we got back, I couldn't remember where I'd taken my daughter.
Wow.
I couldn't remember where I put the phone number. I couldn't find the phone number. And that shocked me and woke me up more than anything in the world. Here's my baby daughter somewhere. Here I am going and doing things for this man just to please him, basically, because at this point it was way more of a job than it was any kind of a pleasure or relationship or anything. And it took a little bit, but I found another paper and I called a lot of numbers and I found my daughter and I went and got her. And that's when I decided, I can't keep doing this. I've got to do something. So he taught me a lot about electronics, about radio. I got my own ham license and stuff. I helped him build a color TV.
Wow.
Awesome.
Scratch, pretty much. So I was pretty good on the assembling end. So I got a job at Qualidyne Systems Incorporated, a parts place first, where we made sub-assemblies. And later I got a job at Qualidyne Systems, which was an electronics company that made power supplies for Intel and Raytheon and things like that. Well, I got in there and I ended up going all the way to engineering.
Whoa.
Yeah, I learned by watching.
That's awesome. Yeah. I saw Don here accidentally turn an amp into a radio once.
It's amazing. Yeah, anyway, I was working there, and there was a new girl that started working there. She was an assembler. Her name was Vicki Baker. Sound familiar? Vicki Baker?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we made friends, and it turned out she just moved from Iowa, and she was living in a motel, and she hadn't, saved up enough money from the job to be able to get a place, of her own. It's hard when you're living in a motel. So Art and I had a 2-story farmhouse in the middle of San Diego. It was on like an acre of land and stuff, and 5 bedrooms, and it was just me and him. So I told Vicki, you can you can, rent our bottom side. We've got, it would be private for you because it's a big bedroom downstairs. All the other bedrooms are upstairs, and we all get along. So anyway, she said, sure, yeah, that'd be great. So she moved in, and that very first night, he ended up down in her bedroom with her, and that's how Art got together with Vicky, because just like what had happened with me and Alan, and him, the Tanya thing. Well, now we've got another woman living in our house that he's just. Well, I went to bed early. He stays up all night, so I had no ideas about anything until I got up in the morning, and they're waking up in the morning too. So anyway, yeah, that's when I broke up with him. I had money from working at this job and stuff to where I could get my own place, and that's what I ended up doing. So.
I mean, I don't think anybody would blame you.
No.
Just out of curiosity, after Art started talking about, has anybody seen a UFO? Did by chance you guys notice an increase in sightings and activity? And do you think that there were actually more of them, or that there were just more people who were willing to come out about the stuff after hearing it on the radio?
I think there was more people that were willing to come out and talk about it on the radio. I mean, everybody wants to share something exciting that they've seen, and I've seen lots of them myself, so I wouldn't say that there were more UFOs out there after he started talking about them. I think they were already out there, and became more common and more accepted for people to say, hey, yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, especially at that time.
Do you have any of your own experiences that you'd care to share with us?
My own experiences?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is Reality Brief after all. Please do tell.
Okay. From back in that time, in fact, it was before meeting Art, me and my husband went out to dinner at this place, I think it was called Papayos in Monterey, California, and you can eat out on their patio. There was a second-story patio.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we were out there, and it's not far away from the airport, but coming out from over the airport was what looked like a UFO disc. It was, although it was round, it was kind of shaped like this, kind of like that, almost like a turtle.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going out to sea, and there's this looked like molten fire was coming out the back, kind of just dripping out the back, and it's not going forward very well, and it's having a hard time, and it's out over the Monterey Bay.
Wow.
Well, what color was the fire? Like
it was
like orange.
oh,
like
the fire
normal
was the yellow. It looked like yellow color.
yellow.
Yellow and orange fire, molten, like molten metal almost.
Oh, okay.
And there were other people there at the restaurant that saw it too. I go, wow, look at that. We all run out and we go see. And when it got out over the bay, there was another UFO that came straight down out of the dark night sky, straight down to it, was hovered right above it. And then in an instant, it went straight back up.
Wow.
And that possibly could have been one of the sightings. I had asked Art to ask people if they'd seen something like this, so that would have been the first time. But my best story was up in my farm in Northern California where I used to live. I had a friend that came from England, and I'd been telling her, we see UFOs every night. I'm constantly hailing them with green laser lights and stuff, and they're always going wham back at. They always do that. Well, so she wanted to see one, and I just harvested a bunch of hay. So I had a big haystack for everybody to get on. My daughter, my son-in-law, and my friend Mandy and myself went up on top of that. We put down some rugs, and we had some some popcorn and stuff to sit back and lay back because, I'm going to show her all these UFOs. Well, we're laying out there for about an hour. We don't even see a shooting star. No satellite. No nothing.
What a
I was like,
ripoff.
crap!
That's how it always goes, man.
You're making me a liar, just like a talking bird. Does your bird talk? Yeah, he's not going to talk to you now that you asked. But anyway, we're laying there, and my daughter looks up and she says, "Look, there's a satellite right there." And sure enough, there's this fine little tiny pin of light, and it's crawling slowly across the sky. I go, well, this is really boring. Why can't we see a Norway spiral or something like that? Well, within 15 seconds, that little tiny dot's straight up in front of us. And with a white swoosh, it comes straight down toward us. And it comes to a screeching halt, and it goes, wham, in the biggest blue spiral you've ever seen.
Wow.
Like the Norway spiral type spiral?
Everybody's laying there going, oh! And then it goes straight back up in a straight white whoosh, turns into that little tiny fine dot again, and continues on its.
Wow, that's incredible.
That's far out.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing something like that. I just don't want him to come down and get out and grab me, because, like, I'm...
See, I might be like, come on, Scoop Dog, Scoop.
No. I'll be like, take down!
I heard Sirius Base is lit.
Oh, boy.
They've never tried to scare me. I had one, there was one that would go over every night, right after sunset, probably about 9-ish or 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and in the summertime. And it was shaped like a diamond, like this, with long sides, and it proceeded like this. Not like this, but it was like this.
Whoa.
So... And everybody in the neighborhood had seen it and called it the drone. Well, there goes the drone again. People say, "What's that?" Oh, that's just the drone. Well, one night it's going over, and I'm sitting out there on a hay bale, and I'm saying, "Well, who are you, and where you're going?" Because it always go from the west over the Coast Range, and go toward Mount Lassen, which was to the east, but then it would go straight down in front of Mount Lassen. Oh, so this night I'm sitting out there and I see it out there. And I go, well, who are you and where are you going? What's this all about? And that thing stopped. It stopped and it started coming back in my direction, and it started lowering altitude. And that's the first time I ever had one react that way. Usually they just, if you signal them with a light or something like that, they'll illuminate really big. Well, this one didn't illuminate, and I didn't put a light on it either. I just said this. I thought this. It must be 20,000 feet up in the air at least. And that thing started coming back. And when it gets real like that, you get really. There's a feral fear that happens to you.
I can imagine.
Something you don't expect happens. And so when I started to freak a little bit, the thing stopped its approach. And so I'm trying to settle down, and it started its approach again, and I'm deciding, well, maybe I better go back in the house now. And that's when it stopped again, and it dimmed down just a little bit, and then it went back to where it was and continued on its way. So it did hear me. It did respond, and it was careful not to freak me totally out.
So it's almost like you did one of those Steve Greer CE1s or whatever, but, without the copyright.
Yeah, without the copyright, without the $1,000.
Without the $1,000. You guys hear that out there? You don't actually have to pay a bunch of money. Just go meditate in the field.
Yeah. And
really go out there with the right intent.
I've seen some weird stuff in the sky around here too. I've seen a Treb over Newport News, but most of the time around here, if you start shining lasers up into the sky, all of a sudden you're disrupting air traffic, and it's a felony.
Yeah, all of a sudden you're a homegrown terrorist. We're surrounded by military. Like, there's bases literally everywhere over here. So there's constant military traffic.
Wow.
Yeah, around here, it's like if the Hampton Roads really would be, honestly, one of the greatest places for UFOs to just sort of slip into normal air traffic and, come on in and not even be noticed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. I think we're at least less likely to see something, but
Well, if they're that advanced, they have cloaking tech and they can make themselves look like a
same,
plane.
man. If they
I
want to
mean-
be seen, they'll be seen. Whatever.
Personally, I kind of wish they would just, pull up over the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel and be like, Earth, get your shit together.
I wish they would come over to Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel and be like, "Here's another lane, no more traffic."
We have come from light years away to teach you how to merge.
Anyway,
If you can't
don't let
handle
us-
certain turn signals, you certainly don't deserve anti-gravity.
Don't let us derail this any further. Where were we at here? All right. Did you have any other UFO sighting stories or anything like that you wanted to share? Let me check the chat, see if anybody's asking questions. We do have a comment. Please let her know that Ian from Space Portals has met Tanya, and years ago he thought she was full of crap. But now this just proved it to me. She mirrors what Marsha said. So we have somebody watching right now that knows the other.
Good,
So,
Tanya.
told me
Good,
the
Tanya.
same thing.
That's why we're not mentioned in the wiki. Okay, that's why we're not mentioned in the wiki.
they were contacted the interview. He did what? Nah. That's funny. That's too much, man.
So, earlier you mentioned that Bob McCutcheon fella.
Sachiko, Tanya Sunday Bell, me, Vicky, Ramona, and Aaron. And the probably hundreds of other women that are still out there.
Well, and it makes you wonder, too, because, I mean, I guess he wasn't single for very long, but with the following he had, he probably could have had his choice of fans, especially.
Yeah. Yeah, especially after he got famous. You know, he definitely has the gift of gab, and he certainly can be very charming. That's true.
Well, I had a question about now you were talking about going to parties, and you went to the one party and then you couldn't remember what sitter you had left your daughter with, so it was kind of like a wake up call. But so I mean that kind of leads you to assume that there was drugs being consumed at these parties. Was Art into any type of drugs?
Yeah, he was into amphetamines. It was a way to stay up at night.
Right.
If he didn't have amphetamines, well, it's the constant coffee. Lots of coffee, lots of cigarettes.
Hey.
And when we were going to go out, there was always amphetamines.
What is this?
Somebody, we had somebody saying,
no,
can I call?
We can't take any calls right now. Sorry.
Yeah, our Skype on the other computer isn't quite working. We're having a hard time getting the two Skype calls at the same time.
The only way we'd be able to take a Skype call is if we put her on hold, and we're not doing that. So sorry, guys. Maybe some other time. Okay, so you said he was in the methamphetamine. Well, what kind of stuff was going on at these parties?
To be fair, that was really common back in the late 70s too. Like that was like the heyday of biker crank. Yeah,
Right.
Easy Rider and all that.
Well, it makes sense. You're gonna need to stay up all night because you're shit posting on the ham radio or whatever.
Yeah, and most people didn't. Most people didn't smoke it back then. They took it in little pills like White Crosses and Black Bennies, and
Yeah, White Crosses.
I hear tales
there's
about
crank.
these wondrous drugs that used to be around, like Quaaludes, that you can't find anywhere anymore.
Ludes, yeah.
Okay, settle down, Dan. so I can't. I'm sorry. You probably didn't realize this is the most unprofessional broadcast on the internet when you signed up for this.
But hey,
We apologize. Oh, what the hell are we talking about?
At least we're not prudes, right?
Right.
No.
All right, so definitely drug use going on, uppers. Now, did he do you smoke pot or do acid or anything like that?
No, I didn't do acid. I'm a pot smoker. He wasn't so much a pot smoker. He'd probably take a puff or two, but he really was more into
More into the
coffee and
uppers. Yeah, he just
cross
wanted.
top whites.
So he didn't really want to get high. He just wanted to stay awake.
Yeah, he just wanted to stay up. Exactly.
So probably not a big drinker.
Oh yeah, no drinking though. Yeah, I guess that's
well,
counterproductive.
I wouldn't say he was a big drinker. No, not really.
Right on. I never
No,
got that vibe.
I knew him.
But I don't know. What did kind of, I mean, I guess maybe he knew he was getting older, but for like, there was only 3 months between when Ramona passed and when he hooked up with his last wife. So that maybe he just knew he was getting old. I don't know. I don't know what was going on in the man's personal life at that point, or at all really. But he, I guess, waste no time, huh? If you know you're on limited time, you gotta act quick.
Right.
The man doesn't love, okay? That isn't in a narcissist's vocabulary, even if they write it on paper or say it to your face. Okay? It isn't there. So
I know.
we just read the letter from him to me, and it was a pretty manipulative letter, and it's like he's torn between, well, God, I had so much fun with Tanya because, well, Tanya had her profession that excited him a whole lot, and so she filled a need, but he apparently didn't feel a need for her. That was something that my husband could do. But how do you explain a narcissist? Honest to God. He loves himself. He makes sure everybody loves himself too. That's what he was about. And I would imagine with Ramona being with him for so long, she probably got tired of stuff. She probably stopped doing certain things for him. To him, a wife, and he called me a wife, even though we didn't get married, because he had a divorce going on, and I had a divorce going on. And by the time both of those were over with, I was really sure that I did not want to be with him, but I needed to get out. So, but he doesn't. It was easy for him to get over Tanya, not in a love sort of way, but in an addiction sort of way. Mm-hmm. I would probably be really willing to say that he was not just a sexual deviant, but he was really addicted to it in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Right.
In a lot of ways.
I can see that. I mean, so.
But it had nothing to do with. It had nothing to do with emotions, and it had nothing to do with convictions, because he really has none. I gotta move this. Hang on a second.
No worries. Well, in the meantime, maybe after the show we have somebody who's just sent us a message saying that they wanted to call in and tell us about one of their IFO experiences.
Now,
so we might touch on that later.
If you do a Skype video call, we can get you both together. Would you mind sitting through that? Someone as Tomas actually wants to. He's been on the show before. He wants to talk about some encounter he had.
Tomas!
Yeah. So Tomas, if you're listening, go ahead and do a Skype video call, and I will merge them, and we'll see how that works.
We're pushing the boundaries of technical malfunctions here.
You know how we do. So, yeah.
We aim not just to screw up, but to screw up spectacularly.
So, now Tanya, I'm going to reach out to her sometime soon, and I'm going to see if she might be interested in coming on, maybe talking with you. I think that would be great to see you guys.
Here, it's coming in on my computer.
Tomas, you got the Ron Hill show? One that's not on the Reality Brief one. It's on the other channel. Sorry, dude. Derp, forgot about that. We were all set up to take calls, and then it didn't happen. I think we're together on that one.
I was looking forward to that too, because
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people who have a lot of questions, they like to ask.
Yeah, it's it's one thing to type a question in a YouTube chat, but it's a whole other thing, to call in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been having a lot of trouble. We got to find another solution other than Skype for our phone number, because that's where if you call the phone number, that's where it goes. It's just such a pain in the ass.
Well, and I set up a Discord server for Reality Brief, but I really don't know how to use it, and I don't think it's like phone number call-in type compatible. But, more and more people are moving away from phone number-based video chat, so...
I'm sorry, I'm working on it. Oh my gosh. This is such much. Yeah, this is great. This is awesome radio. See, Art.
Yeah, see,
Art Bell would have loved this.
The guy...
Yeah. All right. Well, it looks like we're not gonna be able to get Tomas on because. Oh, actually, let me just go ahead and
there we go.
Let's try this. Let's see
We
if
got a
this
Facebook
works.
call, so let's try that.
It's him. So let's see if this works. I don't know if Marsha. No, it's not gonna work.
Yeah, hardware access error. They can't both access the same
All
hardware.
right, so look, check it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and give Tomas the alternate Skype.
So you were telling us about this fella that had a hangar that was full of weed back before the whole legalization push was going on.
Yeah.
That's pretty far out.
They're big hangars.
Yeah,
They're huge.
like fit a
They must have
Zeppelin
had
huge.
thousands of planes. Huh?
Like park a Zeppelin in there huge.
Just really, really big.
Nice.
I mean, you could probably put 5 or 6 huge jets in one. 727s, 737s.
Now, do you think they had like government protection, or that just nobody knew and they were that slick?
I think they were that slick.
Wow, that's awesome.
They didn't talk about having any kind of protection. They just took liberty. I mean, one of their pilot friends, another one of Art Bob's pilot friends, and it might have been the one that did the hangar full of weed, also did a barrel roll under the Golden Gate Bridge in a 727.
Whoa.
There should be a picture somewhere on the net with that. Bob thought he was crazy for doing it, but that was like their crowd.
Which, I wonder if there was a tip of the hat to that in an episode of Star Trek, because I remember there was the last episode of Star Trek Voyager, they show the USS Voyager flying under the Golden Gate Bridge.
It would fit.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, I almost got it, guys. I'm sorry. I'm doing it.
Interestingly enough, Reality Brief is looking for an engineer, so if you happen to be technically
Because, see, it would be great to be able to just keep talking like nothing's going on while someone else is going, because, it's hard, man. It's hard, guys.
It is a purely volunteer position.
All right, here we go.
Hey!
Video. Let's see.
Hello?
Yay!
Tomas, hey, what's
what's
going
going
on?
on? Hey,
It looked like spit.
we're gonna have to let's see, add people to this call. We're going to
Right.
add.
There she is.
Oh, there she goes. Hey.
Let me mute the on the YouTube.
All right, look. Let me check it out. Hang up real quick, and I'm gonna add you
Alright.
to her call.
Okay.
All right. Can I get back into this? Hey, Marsha. Sorry.
You still with us, on?
Sorry about that. It's happening. I'm getting it. All right, here we go. Ed.
No, I think it's in the middle.
It's in the middle. What?
Go back to her.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Sorry. We'll figure this out eventually. Oh yeah. But look, guys, it's gonna be worth the wait. No, that's not it. No, that's not it. Where'd he go?
Press the button.
Man, I'm working on it, dude. There we go. Let's see if this works. Hey, what's going
Everybody here?
on? It's doing things.
Hello?
There we go. Hey, Tomas, what's going on, man?
Hey, stuff's happening.
You guys hear each other?
Hey, what's up?
I got all the
Yay!
so okay, let's see what it looks like on here. Bam! Look at that, multiple guests at once, dude. We're doing it Art Bell style tonight in the house. Multiple guests. All right, so Tomas, what's on your mind tonight?
You're talking about IFOs?
Yeah, we're talking about everything.
Yeah, in 06, lived out in San Ramon, California, which was like right next to Livermore, Lawrence Livermore Labs.
Mm-hmm.
And one night, stepped out on the patio and I saw what looked like a classic Close Encounter of the First Kind. There would be lights that would go from one end of the horizon to the other, like that, and then do like a 270-degree turn, to the other side of the horizon, making all these maneuvers that were impossible with conventional aircraft. And so, I was watching that, and then eventually, I was like, okay, I got to go to sleep, and came out the next morning, and there are all these what looked like Cobra helicopters with no propellers making these maneuvers in broad daylight.
Like Cobra, like Cobra, that kind of
like Airwolf.
Like what?
Airwolf.
Airwolf. Okay, so like attack, like Apache type things.
Apache type. They were like an older model, like attack helicopter. They weren't, they weren't Apaches, but they were, the kind of sleek, kind of black helicopter. So like, okay, I saw that a few months later. I coming back from San Francisco, I'd take the BART, to Dublin, and usually I take the bus back from Dublin to San Ramon. But there was this, walking trail that went from Dublin to Walnut Creek. So I decided one day, just out of the blue, I was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna walk it," And
Walnut Creek?
yeah, the Iron Horse Trail. And anyways, I started, walking back. It was like a 10-mile hike, and I saw these NASA warehouses, warehouse with big old NASA logo on it. And there were these like Vietnam era helicopters with the propellers were replaced with contraptions that looked like a 50s sci-fi movie. A bunch of tubes and everything. And I was thinking that must have, been like the prototype, and it's like out in the open, not even trying to hide it.
Just flying around with no helicopter blades.
Oh, this thing was parked. It was
Okay.
This must have been like a prototype, but it looked like, like Vietnam era helicopters. These weren't the ones I saw flying.
Right.
The ones I saw up in the sky were like much more advanced versions.
Mm.
But one of the first thing that came to my mind is, what would NASA have anything to do with helicopters?
Good question. I mean, obviously outside of transportation. I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, maybe they're flying around on the moon in a Huey.
Well, it's more like they use a Huey as like the prototype.
For the anti-gravity. Yeah, no, I've heard people talk about helicopters being retrofitted with anti-gravity devices.
You know, that kind of makes sense. That seems like it would be the cleverest thing to make, do anti-gravity stuff, because it can already kind of maneuver that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of there was like a conventional propulsion flying disc that was the Germans made that is basically, it's very similar to helicopter technology.
And then you're talking about the one with the tree works. I'm sorry, go ahead, Marsha.
Yeah. Instead of like a stabilizing rotor, it had some sort of gyroscopic technology to level the main rotor. But
now, what were you saying there, Marsha?
Well, I think they developed discs in California along with a lot of other things, because while I was growing up, I was seeing discs from the time I was a little child.
Yeah.
And the early ones, you could see the rivets in them. You could see the seams in them, okay? And as time progressed, as I got older and saw them more, they started dropping the seams. They started dropping rivets. I mean, after a while, there were no louvers in them. Back in the early days, there were louvers in them too. And by the time it got to the 2000s, they were really, really sleek. You couldn't find a seam, not a rivet or anything on them. I've seen them close.
When I saw those helicopters flying that morning, they were flying upside down. And I know enough about helicopters to know that they can't fly upside down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe they weren't helicopters. Out here, I live in Colorado now. And it was 2016. It was either 2015 or 2016. We had quite a sighting here, and the whole town saw them. And there were 3 UFOs, and they were round, and they looked organic. It was during the daytime. In fact, Scott Stevens, he's our local meteorologist, got a lot of video of it. Another friend of mine was watching through binoculars, and they hung over the city for almost an hour, okay, for us to watch. They also went over to Leadville and then went to Salt Lake City on the same day. But anyway, when they left here, my friend Ara, that was watching them through binoculars, said that they morphed into the shape of jet planes, and then they took off. So they actually morphed.
That could be done with holographic technology. That could be done with programmable matter.
Yeah, not knowing what it was. I mean, it looked. It definitely wasn't weather balloons, I'll tell you that. But they had ribs that went down in like a hole in the bottom, almost like a sea urchin without all the little things hanging off of it. Dry sea urchin, kind of like that.
Well, what I saw, these were definitely like attack helicopters. But do you remember like the original Star Trek movies?
Yeah.
With the torpedo tubes on the Enterprise?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's exactly what it had in place of propellers that that was standing on top of the chassis, and also where the stabilizer rotor would be. There was like another kind of black,
like cells,
kind of like semi-diamondoid box rectangular shape. But these were definitely like helicopters. Now, all right. Speaking of UFO, flying saucers, though, you understand how ET propulsion works, right?
I mean, which type?
The flying classic flying saucer.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. We talk about like soft disclosure in Star Trek. If you look at a cross section of a warp nacelle, it's basically a bunch of flying saucers all stacked on top of each other, turned at a 90-degree angle. And if you look at how it's explained, it's pretty much the same thing as ET tech, as UFO tech.
Right. It almost sounds like that could be a candidate for that ball thing. That it's like some kind of ball that's encased in the shell. I can't remember where I was, if I heard about it, if I read about it somewhere, or if it was on
Well,
one of
look
those
at
programs on like Gaia or something. You know how they do the deep
Yeah.
space and all that stuff. And they got assorted whistleblowers. It was basically a ball that's like encased in a case, and they use that, like they mount it on the ship or whatever to float it. So I wonder if it's got something to do with that. You know what I'm talking about, Dan?
It's interesting that the Star Trek reboot, the dilithium chamber is spherical shape.
Oh, are you talking about on Discovery?
Yeah,
The new
it's
one?
just how that kind of tends to mirror. It's like, what? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Gene Roddenberry an ensign during Operation High Jump?
Yeah. Oh, and you know we did a show that was a while back that was talking about Gene Roddenberry
And the Council of Nine
The Council of
channelings.
Nine. Yeah, the Council of Nine channelings. Didn't Andrija Puharich come up and all that?
Sure did.
That-
But
That MK Ultra
I
guy.
got a question for Marsha actually. How did Art Bell feel about all this stuff? I mean, did he believe in it? Did he believe you? Do you think you were crazy when you were telling him about the stuff that you saw? Or
Well, he doesn't let on that you're crazy.
no, obviously he doesn't let on that. But what did he?
But
I mean, you were with him. What did he actually think about that kind of stuff?
He thought it was pretty interesting. You know, he's interested in any kind of technology.
Mhm.
Okay, anything electronic, any kind of technology at all, he wants to be on the cutting edge of it. So to see or hear of someone seeing something, you know, he really wished that he had. And I understand that later in his life, I guess when he was with Ramona, they saw a triangle craft that was flying behind their car when they were going somewhere. So, and that was, I guess, the first time he ever actually saw anything. And
Interesting, that would be a TRB B3,
yeah,
Right.
more like pissed off somebody and high up.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And it goes to show how intimidation tactics tend to have the opposite effect.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, a lot of times intimidation just emboldens people to continue going forth because, you know, you're pissing off the right people if you come out and say certain things.
Absolutely. I mean, you know.
Incidentally,
It don't always
if
work like
I
that.
happen to disappear after this broadcast, somebody delete my browser history.
I got you, bro. I got you. No one's gonna know about the midgets, Dan. Oops.
The midgets and the pineapples
midgets.
strike again.
The midgets and the pineapple are fine as long as nobody sees the one with
With
the
the
gray
pizza?
with the pizza and the gray costumes and the inflatable.
You guys like the
seahorse.
artwork I sent?
What?
You guys like the artwork I sent?
Man, I saw it. You sent it. I didn't really get to scrutinize it. I was, you know what I mean, kind of a little bit busy at the moment. Let's see. No, that's not you. That's somebody else. So what you got? What is it? Tell me about this artwork here.
It's some sort of memory recall. I do know that, like, you know, albinoism tends to occur after like several generations of people living without any natural sunlight,
Okay.
and it's fairly common in like, you know, like underground, you know, subterranean colonies and.
So these are what are these like clones or are these regular people?
No, it's
Sorry.
People from Sirius Base?
no. She's as human as we are. It's just like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, several generations living underground or out in a hollowed out asteroid somewhere. You know.
Well, yeah, that's why
Well,
I
I mean,
mentioned
I'm just-
Sirius Base because
I'm
that is
just
a hollowed
looking-
out asteroid pretty much.
just looking for context here is all because they seem to be having sex. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, what are when you start remembering things? What kind of triggers things like what are your strongest memories usually?
Right. Yeah, no doubt. I was just trying to figure out what was going on. Is all, man. It's just no judgment here, man. That's what it is. But so this is a human. This is a
friendly, for syndicated television.
Yeah, Ted Turner's gonna fucking fire us.
You're fired.
I still haven't gotten my check from the Mossad yet, so
From the YouTube chat, it's a black helicopter thing. You wouldn't understand.
I identify as an attack helicopter.
Yeah, his art is amazing. It's great, man. I mean, we've posted a lot of it up on the show for people before, and it's really good. So tell us, you have a process when you remember stuff about, your whatever happened to you. Tell us about that, man.
It comes up in the artwork, and then I usually have like a really, really strong feeling about it when it's in the process of being made. And a lot of times it'll end up like other people confirm it and remember something similar.
I'm sorry, somebody just commented Art Bell is dead. Well, thanks for
thank you, Captain Obvious.
Thank you out there. I would have never even known. Here, take this.
Is he really?
I think I posted my own kind of personal eulogy about Art Bell, like when I heard about his passing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he touched a lot of people's lives, man. For better or for worse. And I don't know. I would probably still be here doing this. Don and I had a talk about this earlier. I would probably still actually be here doing Reality Brief, even if he hadn't inspired me. But it damn sure didn't hurt.
And my one regret about Art Bell is he didn't star as himself on an episode of King of the Hill.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean,
I'm surprised he wasn't on The Simpsons.
Yeah, really.
All right, well, we're coming up on the end of the show here, so it's last chance, you guys, to get any questions in for Marsha, and I guess now Tomas, since he's here.
Well,
hey, what's up, guy? Well, it's pretty cool, man. At least we couldn't have any callers. At least we could get Tomas on.
We could do a whole episode on whether or not Matt Groening was a time traveler. So, I mean, in a way, if you think about it, like, there are some people that are just pieces of Americana. Hunter S. Thompson, Bill Murray, Matt Groening, and I think Art Bell was that kind of guy. Like, that's something that's burned into the American consciousness forever.
Yeah, that's what he wanted.
Yeah. Well, he's got a legacy, but I wouldn't necessarily say he was a great man.
Well, no person is pure.
True that.
All
True
men
that,
are gray.
Man.
To some degree.
One day after I'm dead, people are gonna be like, "Man, that guy was a fucking bitch."
You better believe it. If you go first, we're doing a whole show where everyone's just gonna call in and talk shit about you.
That's great, man. And I'll be fucking sitting in troll heaven, just giggling.
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right, so the stream was on a little bit of delay, so we'll give it another minute or two to see if anybody wants to get a lesson. We probably, he said he probably wouldn't want to have a three-way with Marge. If he was on it's too much, man. It's too much.
At least much.
Well, I was just gonna ask, like, okay, for the person that has never had a legit UFO sighting, where would you recommend that they go?
Talk to Steve Graham. Look,
I would say go out anywhere. Like the reason why a lot of deserts get UFO sightings because the sky is really clear.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get UV binoculars, then you will see all kinds of stuff.
In Northern California, I live in the San Luis Valley of Colorado right now, at the foot of Sangre de Cristos, which is supposed to be, the extraterrestrial highway and all the things that go on here. But from living in Northern California, hands down, you see far more different ones here. I mean, in Northern California than you would here in Colorado. And I'm really way out in the middle of nowhere here. It's a black night. Every star, it looks like you could just touch them because I'm at like 8,500 feet.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
I would definitely love to visit Humboldt County. I think that'd be pretty rad. We should
I used to
we
live-
should go on a road trip, Don.
So
I don't know. It's like Antifa Central.
If you want to look for reptilians, go to Mount Lassen. If you want to look for Pleiadians, go to Mount Shasta. If you want to see a whole plethora of them, go to Mount Baker or go to East City Ranch with James Gilliland, because he does a lot of the same things. They have a lot of sightings. There's a lot of sightings on the West Coast, for sure.
Right.
You want to, you should try to get on as guest as Jerry Wills.
who's that?
He's a Tao living among us.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be interesting.
I was looking, because, like I said, he openly admits, yeah, I'm an ET living among you. But, I wonder about Trump because, like,
I wonder about Trump
it's like-
too, dude. I wonder, man.
I'm not saying he is, but he definitely has like certain.
I'm wondering something different, but yeah, I wonder. Oh man. So yeah, I'm wondering if like it's got to do with. I mean, especially associated with the mountains. Like maybe it's particular. This species got a base under this mountain. You know what I mean? This species got a base over here.
The Pleiadians
That's
and the
why you
Nordics,
can
right?
see.
If they don't get along, they probably want to put some distances between their bases. And
Right. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense.
You said the Pleiadians and the Nordics, right?
yeah, Pleiarns. I
So-
think it's the way it's pronounced.
Northern California is on the flight plan for Area 54.
Word, Northern California it is.
Yeah.
go.
What? I've never even heard of Area 54. I
Well,
guess
San
that's-
Francisco is a dumping ground for failed experiments.
This is Area.
You don't say.
It's also a dumping
I
ground
wish
for
I
like
had.
burnt
I'm
eyes
about
and
to
stuff
get in
too.
trouble here.
Like, you amazed who you meet. You hang out at Hippie Hill during an afternoon, and you just start talking to people. And it's like, okay,
So I guess
Yeah,
is Area 54 just like 3 more secret than Area 51? I mean, how does that work? I never even heard
Tall
of
white
Area
base.
54, man.
Yeah, it's the Nordics.
The Nordics, hey?
Yeah.
So that would that makes sense.
I'll go. We go hang out with some Nordics. I'm down.
Hey, man,
yeah. Apparently, they're live at the party.
I would hope so.
just don't touch them.
I would have to imagine they're more fun than the Alpha Drax.
Well, when you talk about Nordic, I mean that's like a huge range of. I mean, hominids are like one of the most common life form out there. Yeah, we're fairly proficient breeders.
Yeah, that makes sense that we're ubiquitous. I dig that.
I think the only life form that, well, the ones that tend to outbreed us are the rodents and the insectoids. Aside from that,
And I would definitely like to talk to one of those golden triangle-headed aliens. They kind of trip me up.
yeah, me and another SSP.
You crack me up, man. You crack me up, man.
With one of them. Like, it appeared, looked at us, and disappeared. And we asked around, like, other ETs, like, what do you know about them? We don't know shit.
So you say
They're
you've seen one of
they
those
are-
then?
The triangle heads?
You said you seen
You
the
know, a
triangle?
good analogy. In Babylon 5, the Vorlons.
Yeah.
That's basically what the Golden Radiance. That's pretty much a good way to interpret them.
Cool. They were my favorites. I like Babylon. Yeah, I watched a lot of Babylon 5. I thought they were one of the cooler species of aliens. What?
You got a crush on the Golden Radiance too?
Yeah, I think they're fascinating.
Ah, put it away, Dave. You got a crush on everybody, man.
I mean, what?
I'm sorry, that's an inside joke, guys. Yeah. All right. Well, like I said, it's about that time for us to get going. So I would like to thank Marsha so much for coming forward with her stories about the late Art Bell.
Yeah, I'm honored that you chose to come on the show.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate the hell out of it, and I know you're kind of putting yourself out there, and
I just want to
thank
say
you for everything, for coming
I
forward.
want to
for
say
talking
this
to us.
before we go that I've known her for about a year, and we've talked about this a long time ago, and it was me that approached her for the interview. It's not like she's out seeking attention or something like that. It was all me. So if you want to call somebody bad names like attention whore or something like that, right here, all right? Leave her alone. Because I forced her to do it. It's not, I didn't force her to do it, obviously, but it was all my idea, so I don't want to hear no crazy shit talkings. Leave her alone. Anyway,
Thanks, Don.
Tomas, thanks for jumping on and telling us about the helicopters. Or the whatever the hell, who knows at this point, man. It was submarine helicopter tank.
What?
Oh, wow, I wish I had my crickets just then. That was fucking great. All right, guys. Good night, and we will see you next week on Reality Brief for another brilliant episode.
Good night, good evening, wherever you may be.
Oh, I almost... Don't do that. That's not what I'm supposed to do. This is it.
I'd save the heartache for another life if I'd known. I'd make the promise to myself if I'd known. The sun can't set, no moon could hang, not on freedom. We count the stars as they burn out on frozen